Konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 147 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. So today I finally got a chance to watch the first episode of Zyuohger. TV Nihon came out with their subbed version, and I highly recommend you guys go check it out. I love the work they do, and that's actually why I didn't get to it till today, because I was waiting for their version and not looking for any other subbed version out there. Nevertheless, I got a chance to go ahead and watch it, and, frankly, it was okay. I really wasn't wowed by too many things in the episode. I do have one major criticism, and that's that it's obviously a 60-minute plot that has been condensed into a 22-minute runtime, so there's a lot of action beats, there's a lot happening, but there's very little story, very little character development that is happening. But that's the major criticism that I have with it. Really, after watching the episode, I have more questions than anything, and they're questions I really don't think that the creators intended me to be asking, but since this is the Onyx Tavern and we analyze things in such a way, that's what we're going to go ahead and do today. Now, what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about Zooland and Zoomans. So here's the concept that I do like. In the episode, our protagonist Yamato, ends up going to Zooland through the cube, basically using what will eventually be his morpher to travel from Earth and our human world to another point on Earth called Zooland, where it is populated by anthropomorphic animals. And as we meet, we get, our four other characters, Sela, Leo, Tusk, and Amu, who are respectively a shark, a lion, an elephant, and a tiger. And as we explore this world with Yamato, who is our point of view character, we see that there are many other Zoomans out there, more anthropomorphized animals. We see rhinos, we see horses, pandas, pigs, dogs. You see all these animals floating around there in the background. And as we're going around this, it's great world building. I mean, the look of it is great. The costumes are a little but again, that's kind of the budget they are at here, especially when their mouths don't move. That seems to be a problem. But we're going around, we're getting introduced to it, and Yamato, who again, he is our point of view character, and of course he's going to be experiencing it for the first time just as we are. He asks this question: I wonder how they evolved this way. And I thought to myself, that's a damn good question. Because, here's the thing. When you actually sit and think about it for a few seconds, you realize that Zoomans can't naturally exist. That by the process of evolution, Zoomans cannot exist. Now, infinite probability says that they obviously can, but I find it highly unlikely, and I'm going to explain why I have that belief, not to mention what I think this will eventually lead to. Because I don't think, I don't think that anybody really expected us to listen to that line and really think about it in the way I'm going to discuss it with you guys here. But it's also odd they would throw that line in there in a place that is virtually impossible to exist within the natural world and not have that be some sort of plot point later on in the series. Now here's what I want to go ahead and talk about. First of all, let's talk about the nature of Super Sentai and the world in which they inhabit. The interesting thing about Sentai is that it does play fast and loose with a lot of physics, but it has remained consistent that science is a thing. Science fiction, yes, that's a staple of the series, but science does exist. On the other hand, magic and religion also exists. Now, the funny thing is that this series, so far, I would not classify as a fantasy. I would, so far, classify this as a science fiction series. Because their powers are not magical, they are based on technology, and the fact that everything is a cube suggests to me that there is something mathematical about it. The Zords are numbered, that's obviously mathematical in some fashion, even down to the design of the suits seem like there is some sort of math or science that's taken place here. And I don't know how to classify them based on the Ranger Strike categorizations, I guess. Mythic beasts or whatever, the wild beasts would suffice for it. But I would also suggest this is probably some sort of Earth technology. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because I believe what is happening here is science and not fantasy. Because, again, we've established in Super Sentai that science does exist, evolution is a thing, dinosaurs were a thing, all that. Evolution exists. That's firmly established within the canon of Super Sentai. However, also in Super Sentai, we have the existence of God and other gods. Whether it be Daizujin that we had all the way back in Zyuranger, whether it's God in Gokaiger, or it's God over in Go Buster, this series has made a point of making it known to us that there is an afterlife, there is a heaven, there is a hell, there are gods, there are demons, there are Oni, all that exists. Now, to what denomination? Well, we're not exactly sure, but that's beside the point here. And you can say, well, we have the existence of gods in Sentai, so obviously God created Zooland and the Zoo humans. To which I say, the reason I brought this as more science fiction, not fantasy, is I don't think that the end game here is going to be based on any type of fantasy, religion, or magical elements, that it's all going to be based on some sort of scientific whatever. Because, again, you can easily say God made them, they put them there, but I don't think that's the direction the series is going to go, and if they do, that's kind of a cop-out for the series. I think what's happening here, and this is the ultimate point I want to get to, is that I think both Zooland and Zoomans are some sort of artificial construct, or that they were artificially created by some unknown mortal being, through the use of science. Not the use of magic, not through the use of God, but through the use of science and technology. And let's explore a couple of things about that. First of all, here's the thing about the Zoomans, again, when you look at them, is that they cannot exist in the natural world in the state that they have. Let's use Tusk as a quick example here. Tusk, again, who is the Green Ranger Zuo Elephant. If you notice him in the show, humanoid. 2 legs, 2 arms, I think he has 5 digits on his hand, and he has the head of an elephant with tusks and a trunk. And this is kind of like what we see in, cartoons. This is how they depict them, because it ultimately is a guy in a costume. But within the context of the show, what this is trying to show is that he naturally evolved this way. That's kind of the implication, is that this is how elephants would look if they had evolved to a more humanoid shape. Now, evolution does not have a certain direction. Let me go ahead and get that out of the way, because it is a reactive process to things that happen around them and how they breed and die off and so forth. So, anytime you see things that Brannon Braga writes, basically saying, hey, it's going in a certain direction. No, that's not the case. It's a reaction to things that are happening. Now, why is that important here? Because Sentai is not saying that, what's going to happen is that all animals eventually evolve into a bipedal race. That may be true in Star Trek based on their mythos and their lore and what happened in the episode of Chase, but this isn't Star Trek, this is Super Sentai, and Super Sentai doesn't have those types of rules. So it's kind of odd that we have all these different species becoming bipedal humanoids. And again, isn't it odd that their names are Zoomans? That's basically a combination of the word zoo and human? Again, let me dive further into this. But let's consider Tusk the elephant. Now, when you see an elephant grab things, does it actually grab it with its legs? No, it grabs it with its trunk. So, if an elephant was to evolve for 65 million years or beyond what its current evolutionary state is, say, with no other interference by technology or otherwise, I'm willing to bet that it would not develop 5-digit hands. They would not have feet similar to humans and would not stand upright. In order for it to evolve naturally, it would have to use its its trunk as its appendage, as whatever it's used to grabbing thing, where digits would eventually evolve from. it's not scientifically impossible for this to happen through infinite probability, but it's highly unlikely that an elephant would evolve in this direction to look like a human. Let's also take a look at Zooxarxila, because look how improbable she is. Because, first of all, sharks do not breathe oxygen the same way you and I do. They breathe through gills. So, how is she breathing normally? You know, there was a cartoon, I think it was my gym partner is a monkey. And they actually had a character who was a shark. And what they actually did, and that was pretty clever, because they showed him with gills, but with like water pouches on the side of him or something, to show that that's how he was breathing through the water he was carrying around. And they do the same thing with Fish Face on the third Ninja Turtles TV series, that he has water packs on him to basically help him breathe. No such thing for Sela here. So the question is, how did her species evolve to the point to breathe oxygen without having gills? And, of course, keep in mind that a shark is not a mammal, unlike the others. So for it to evolve in this particular direction, to have these appendages and fingers when it has no appendages at all. Yes, it has fins and a tail and everything, but it doesn't have digits of any kind. How did this particular creature evolve to walk on land and become what it is? And, here's the thing, too. Let's look at our starting point, because, again, humans have evolved the way we had after, millions and millions and millions of years of evolution, because the human race has only been around for, I think 20,000 years, something around that number, maybe a little bit larger, but that's kind of my understanding, my guess off the top of my head. But before that, we were other things. We evolved from Neanderthals and other types of great apes and so forth, and then you go back further until, you get to single-celled organisms. The point that I'm getting at is that I have a hard time believing that humans and regular humans evolved parallel to each other, that we were able to coexist at the same time, and somehow humans and humans end up getting separated from each other, but both have this predetermined evolutionary line. Which brings up another question of where Zooland is exactly, because consider that they all speak Japanese there. That's kind of odd, and the only place in the world that actually speaks Japanese is, well, Japan. And it would be pretty hard to hide this place in a place that's only 4 islands, and it's only the size from Boston to Miami, pretty much. But again, the point is, it's kind of odd that there is a location in which they evolve separately from humans, and yet they take on humanoid appearances. I find that very odd, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But here's ultimately what I'm getting at. I do believe that Zoomans and Zooland are the products of some sort of scientific, most likely genetic, manipulation. That Zooland and Zoomans are not natural. That somebody or something created them. Not God, not, Okami or Amaterasu or anything like that. That they were created possibly in a laboratory. I mean, first of all, the name is a good suggestion here. That one, Zooland. Again, it's a pun on the word zoo. Is it possible Zooland is a animal preserve of some kind? One of those zoos where they don't know that they're in a zoo? Could it be that the Zoomans are mixed with human DNA, or worse yet, humans that have been mixed with animal DNA to appear this way? I mean, is this the island of Dr. Monroe? I'm thinking of that Simpsons Halloween special with Dr. Hibbert. But you get my point, right? I do believe that whatever's going on with the Zoomans is not a natural process, that they are artificially constructed in some way. And I think that's going to play an important role in the series. Because, again, look at our protagonist. He's a zoologist. He's a man of science. We have the evolution line that is brought up. We have evidence of science and some sort of mathematics going on by the theme of the cubes in there. So something down the line. Not to mention our villains are space aliens. They're not magical creatures of any kind, which is further enforcing this technological bend, scientific bend to the series. I think we're going to be heading in a direction where we're going to find out that there is a dark secret, that there is some sort of dark truth to Zooland and the origin of the Zoomans. Why are they so easily able to take human form? Maybe because they were human at some point, that they evolved from humans. And we don't even know how old Zooland actually is. It could be a couple decades old. It could be thousands of years old. We don't know that information yet. But just by watching this, you get this uncomfortable vibe. It's just like something's just not right here. And also, let's point out that the Zoomans are interacting with actual animals. Tusk is riding an elephant. There is a dog Zooman holding another dog. So they coexist with these animals. It's an odd thing here, but I do believe that somewhere down the line we're going to look at the backstory of Zooland and Zoomans and find out their true origin, and I'm calling it now. It's going to be some sort of genetic tampering or genetic manipulation on somebody's part. I don't think it's the villains. It's going to be obviously somebody else in the series. I don't know if they're going to be introduced yet, but something is odd here. And I don't know what the end game is, and I hope they do something interesting with this, because if they're just going to go the whole series without mentioning it and not going any type of backstory, I'm going to be super pissed about that, especially here in the 40th anniversary. And this is where we need to find something out. We need to see what's going on with these characters, because I cannot accept the existence of Zooland without some sort of explanation for it. And I know a lot of you are going to point out, but what about the Animarian? What about the Galactabeasts and stuff like that? I still don't accept those either, because the Galactabeasts, they are organic beings, and really the Transdaggers give them this armored form. But then also take a look at the Wild Zords, who coexist at the same time, in which, this great battle happened with Scorpius, and the Galactabeasts, or at least some of the Galactabeasts, were involved with it. And you got the Wild Zords, who are essentially living machines on a flying island. Living machines just don't naturally spring up. They are created in some aspect. And again, I believe the Zoomans are the same way. And I just want to see where this series takes it. Now, there's probably more I have to go ahead and say about it, but I think you guys get the gist of what I'm saying. The evidence laid out so far really leads you to question a number of things, and I'm really curious to see where they take this. So what are your thoughts? Did you guys think about that when you first saw the episode? What do you think is happening here? Leave a comment below and let me know about it. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.